People from all over the world have made Hastings and the surrounding area their home for many years. We say many years because we're not exactly sure how many years. Our aim is to bring people together to tell our stories of migration, to share the joys and the struggles, making these individual stories visible as we find we have more things in common than divides us, thus making our communities stronger.
The Refugee Buddy Project opened in 2017 as a community group welcoming people seeking refuge who had recently arrived in Hastings. Now we are a refugee and migrant-led charity supporting families and individuals from refugee backgrounds with our buddy programme, advocacy, financial and emotional support. In addition to this, we have developed a number of long-term collaborations and partnerships with local cultural institutions which enable us to tell our stories, developing our own narratives, and more importantly, having power over our own narratives. Flavours Without Borders, our ongoing collaboration with Hastings Museum and Art Gallery, is a project which aims to make visible the stories of migrants and people seeking refuge who have made Hastings their home.
My memories are always quite grey of Hastings, and I know that there were sunny days on a weather front, but it was always a sensation of feeling a little bit frightened, a little bit wary. My first experiences of Hastings were not great ones. They were of feeling like I had to fit, but not in the way that other people fitted. I had a place, and that's where I needed to stay, in that place. Two stories I can explain in terms of like the difference in terms of Hastings and the lack of a difference in some ways, and the fact that we are always on guard. I feel myself not on guard, but I'm always aware of it in the background. And one was when I was a child, and my mum was always knocking up recipes from these, and she would say to us, we're going to have like foods of the world, and she would do it every day. So we would have like Spanish food on one day, Italian food on another day, and she would do all of these foods from everywhere. And because we were poor, she would make us put them, we would have to take them to school with us. And so for my lunch one day, and she also we didn't know then, about certain foods, whether you were meant to eat them hot or cold. There wasn't really sort of those level of instructions with it all, which is a massive difference culturally in terms of food from then and now. And so I brought this lasagna to school one day, and I'm very young, and I'm sitting and I opened it, and a kid comes up. We were in a white school. There was only my brother and I who were of any visible difference in colour. My sister could pass as white, and she often did, and so there was only my brother and I who actually bore the brunt of it in a whole school. And so I had this thing. I opened up the lid, and a kid comes up, and he says, and it was quite an abusive element. It was quite a difficult place to be. And he said, "What is in there?" And I looked, and before I could answer, another child, he looks at it and he said, "Packy food." And I remember just sitting there and thinking, I don't know where lasagna comes from, but I don't think it comes from Pakistan. In my experience I've only been to the museum a couple of times, and in each time it was a very strong reminder of colonialism and racism and bigotry, and it had all of the signals of the environment that subjected me to a lot of pain, and my mum to a lot of pain. And actually, my mum would laugh her head off if she thought that her old cookery books were in that place on display.
And I was speaking to my mum about this the other day, but she kind of weaved her answer out of it. And so I think the kids got sedated basically to stay quiet. But you do hear gunshots in the background. You do see bodies in the water because there's troops everywhere. And then when the marsh gets shallow, we all have to get out of the boat and carry it. And so you've got wet feet, and it's quite cold at night in the marsh. No food. You have to hide in the day. So you find some tall grass to hide in the day, and then we move at night. And then at one point during the night, a person with a gun, I guess the border force, did find us, and he sort of like pointed the gun at us. And my dad just sort of stood up and said, look, I haven't done anything. I'm not leaving because I'm part of the crew. I'm just a professor and I don't want to be part of the regime. And we just want to leave the country. So when we were leaving Iraq, Mum said, that evening I got home, she said, go and pick one thing that you want to take with you. I grabbed a bag and filled a bag of stuff. And I came downstairs and she was like, no, one thing that you can carry in your hand, not a bag. And I was like, but we're going for, how long are we going for? And she was like, it doesn't matter. So I picked this thing. Right? And throughout the journey, she kept saying to me that there'd be these really lovely shops in England where you can go and pick outfits for your doll and for you, and they make the same, or you can have days out with it. And she was giving me all these perks to look forward to, because a lot parts of the journey were horrific. I mean, an 8-year-old who's hungry and thirsty, 2-3 days not eating, and there were parts where I did threaten my mum to scream if she didn't tell me what was going on. And I think that's when she told me that we were leaving to go to England, and I was like, what? And she was like, but England has chocolate shops, it has shops where you can buy these lovely dolls and clothes for your dolls. So we built it up in our head, and you have to, because you need hope to get to the other side.
But before that, moving into the UK, maybe the better question is, well, to start life again, to move away from troubles. But it was troubles, and it was a humanitarian need for us to go somewhere safe. And we ended up making our way through various, what could be described as illegal routes now to the UK. And we seek asylum. Mum, dad, family of 7. That's what we're known as when we arrived there. The family of 7. Can they come to booth 3, please? The journey to seek refuge. The actual physical journey of moving from A to B to C to D to make it to the UK was terrifying, because it's just an uncertain time where if one thing goes wrong, then where do we end up? Are we going to end up in prison? There's always these horrible thoughts coming across. And my youngest sister at that point was still being breastfed. She was a year old, and my mum couldn't produce any milk either. So there was a lot of tension throughout that. It took about a year from us to get to our destination, the UK. We made through it somehow. We just sit down in these weird dark rooms, wherever it may be in the world, and play cards together to forget about what's around you. It's just us. We have each other's backs. And eventually, when we made it to the UK, and it didn't feel as welcoming as we thought it would.
So my journey has been quite diverse, I have to say. It started off in Libya, where my parents met, and that's where they were working at the time. My dad's Pakistani and my mum's from England, Devon. So, but their journey started in Libya, and so did mine. Probably when I was about 6, we came back to England. And that was because of my grandparents, but also most importantly, we had been in Iraq at that time, due to my mum's work, and like Libya as well as Iraq, it had become politically unsafe for us to stay. So what I considered to be my birth home, as well as the place that I lived in to the age of 6, we had to leave. It wasn't a plan that we had thought about in the long term. I think that's where we were settled. It was our home, our friends, even our extended family. So at the age of 6, we ended up back in England for a very brief few years, but we ended up in, um, I think it was Devon at the time, and very different. I think we were the only brown kids in town, literally. Um, but throughout the journey, one of the things that was most memorable is this blanket. I say a blanket, it was probably a wall hanging to start off with, but it came with me everywhere. My father had gone back to Pakistan just before I was born and had traveled through Afghanistan. It was a time when we could travel. We did everything by car. We from North Africa, we traveled by car about 3 times to England and back. It's not a journey that many people could do now, or anyone, unfortunately, due to most war-torn countries. But this came from the borders of Afghanistan, which is where my father's
Generally,
from.
so for an 8-year-old kid, black child, a lot of challenges, even at that age. And I'd say quite a sort of difficult time was probably from sort of primary school to secondary school. And we were not a well-off family. We lived on a council estate. It's a common story, we were working class people. And we're surrounded by other working class people. And so the same kind of problems people have. And then I remember I think it was summer before I was going to leave primary school. And my mum sat me down, and my mum never used to do this, so I knew something was wrong. So she said, "What school are you going to?" And I said, "Oh, I'm going to the Grove." And she said, "Oh, are you?" She goes, "What? Why are you going to the Grove?" I said, "All my friends are going to the Grove, so I'm going there as well." And she goes, "No, you're not." And that began a kind of real challenging situation, because basically, I didn't even know I'd passed whatever 11 plus exam, and I was going to go to the grammar school. And it then became a challenge because hardly anyone on that estate went to the grammar school, let alone being black. And it was quite archaic then. We had to wear caps to school and all this sort of stuff. And I tell a story, I used to have to smuggle myself off that estate to be able to go to school. And that meant taking off my tie, never wearing my cap, never wearing my blazer, going some convoluted route to school to avoid meeting kids from the school where everyone else went to, and being beaten up or spat on or whatever it was at that time, or chased by whoever. So it was like running the gauntlet, and it was a bit of a nightmare.
We'd like to say thank you to Hastings Museum. Want to say a massive thank you to Vicky from Bullet Cafe for lending us some stuff for the dinner parties. Thank you to the chefs for cooking amazing Kurdish and Korean food. That's Lily and Helen. And thank you to everybody that came to the dinner parties and took part and shared their stories. It was amazing to hear.
Yeah, my mother, my girls.